Good day, everyone. We are the Group 11 and we are about to report economic nationalism. By the way, I am Gapu Aniros. Economic nationalism. When we say economic, it is the study of how people allocate resources for production, distribution, or consumption. Focuses on the efficiency in production and exchange. Nationalism, it is the identification with one's own nation and support for its interests, especially to the exclusion or detriment of the interests of other nations. Economic nationalism is an ideology that prioritizes state intervention in the economy, including on labor, goods, and capital movement. It tends to emphasize industrialization due to beliefs that industry has positive spillover effects on the rest of the economy. It enhances the sufficiency and political autonomy of the country. There are different problems faced by the post-war Philippines, such as the issue of collaboration and rehabilitation in Philippines after the war. The collaboration issue resolved by President Rojas in 1948 by issuing the Amnesty Proclamation for all the collaborators and war criminals. The Bell Trade Act and Rehabilitation Act of 1946 was the answered by the Washington government to, to appeal the Philippines for economic aid. Philippine Trade Act, also known as the Bell Trade Act, was sponsored by Missouri Congressman Jasper Bell and passed by the U.S. Congress in 1946. The Bell Trade Act was the inclusion of the so-called parity rights of the Americans, granting the U.S. citizens and corporations equal rights with the Filipinos in exploiting the natural resources of the economy. The Bell Trade Act was its violation of the 1935 Philippine Constitution. President Manuel Rojas and Vice President Elpidio Carino had no choice but to accept the acts and amend the 1935 Constitution in order to facilitate the rehabilitation of the Philippine society. In 1955, the Bell Trade Act was revised by the Laurel-Langley Act. Laurel-Langley Act provided full rights to the Americans to own corporations and businesses in the Philippines. It means that Laurel-Langley Act granted full equal rights to the Americans when it comes to business. 1975, Laurel-Langley Agreement expired. However, this created a new major problem because foreigners were starting to become dominant in the country's economy. Senator Recto, in his speeches and the awakening of Filipino nationalism, led to the enactment of Retail Trade Nationalization Act of 1954. In 1957, Carlos P. Garcia succeeded former President Ramon Magsaysay after his death. Carlos P. Garcia opposed the idea of foreigners dominating the Philippine economy. He also implemented the Filipino First policy that gave importance to the Filipino products, interests, and businesses. The Retail Trade Nationalization Act of 1954 This provided protection to Filipino business owners and limited the licenses given to the foreigners. The chart shows the economic growth of the Philippines. The gross domestic product or GDP in the Philippines averaged 73.16 billion from 1960 to 2016. It reached a record low of 4.40 billion in 1962. In the last quarter of 2015, the GDP of the Philippines grew by 6.3% from 6.0% in the third quarter. This quarter was higher than the 5.9% growth predicted by certain analysts. The growth was mainly due to the services sector, which accelerated to 7.4% in 2015 from 5.6% in the previous year. Economic independence according to the 1935 Constitution. The Tidings-Macdophil Law, the Philippines granted an absolute independence after a 10-year Commonwealth transition. It is the formulation of a constitution for the Philippines. In 1935 Constitution, it is provided an article for the economic independence of the Philippines, limits the ownership of land, business, corporation, and exploitation of natural resources to Filipino citizens. The 1935 Constitution, ito yung nagbigay sa atin ng co-equal branches. It is the legal basis of the Commonwealth government, considered as the transition government before the granting of the Philippine independence with American Aspiration Constitution. According to the primary source, Article 12, Conservation and Utilization of Natural Resources. Natural resources, with the exception of public agricultural land, shall not be alienated, and no license, concession, or lease for exploitation, development, or utilization of any of the natural resources shall be granted for a period exceeding 25 years, except as to water rights for irrigation, water supply, fisheries, or industrial uses other than the development of water power, in which cases beneficial use may be the measure and the limit of the grant.
I'm Josie Insapinit. Economic nationalism through the Retail Trade Nationalization Act of 1954. Retail Trade Nationalization Act of 1954 took effect the 1964, and the Trade Act of the Laurie-Langley Agreement were still effective unit 1975. Laurie-Langley Agreement expired in 1975. Republic Act No. 1180, an act of the regulate and the retail business. Section 1. No license should be issued to any person who is not the citizen of the Philippines, and any association, partnership, or corporation not wholly owned by citizens of Philippines actually engaged in the retail business to establish or open additional store or branches for retail business. Economic nationalism through the Filipino First policy excerpt from President Carlos P. Garcia, Third State of Nation, address on January 25, 1960. President Garcia, one of those in the wilderness, opposed the foreigners dominating economic sector in the Philippines. President Garcia opposed the idea of foreigner dominating of the Philippines economy to further counter the dominance to foreigner in the Philippines economy is implemented the Filipino First policy that give importance to Filipino product and tourist business. President Carlos Garcia proposed the Filipino policy, and President Garcia, he was born in November 1846, and he was a eighth president of Philippines. And President Garcia, he was the practicing a lawyer, poet, teacher, orator, and military leader during the Commonwealth government. And President Garcia, he was also a guerrilla leader during the World War II. Filipino First Policy. This policy prioritize and protect Filipino product interests and engagement in a business.
Recto, a Filipino statesman and intellectual play a key role in advocating for economic nationalism in the Philippines. During the mid-20th century, he emphasized the importance of protecting the country economic interests from forced control and exploitation. Recto believed in fostering local industries, promoting self-sufficiency, and ensuring the economic policy prioritize the welfare of Filipino. His ideas community to influence discussion on economic development and sovereignty in the Philippines. He was a oppositionist and critic of the forced dominance in the economic of the Philippines. The first is an expert from his speed intellectual economics independence. He explained in this speech the meaning of the so-called economic nationalism. The second is an excerpt from his speech delivered before the Manila Rotary Club on March 28, 1957. The two speeches provide insight to the debate on economic nationalism. Claro M. Recto, as seen in his speeches, was vocal advocate of economic nationalism in the Philippines. In this speech on economic independence, he likely outlined the significance of economic nationalism, emphasizing the need for the Philippines to control its economic destiny, free from excessive forced influence. In the speech to the Manila Rotary Club delivered in 1957, he probability continue to critique forced dominance in the economy, contributing valuable insight to the ongoing debate on economic nationalism in the country during the time.